Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Gather and Grow session. We're happy you joined us. Here we are on our midweek, and today we're talking about the topic of budgeting. Budgeting. I don't know if that gives you anxieties talking about budgeting, but we're going to kind of take it in a little different perspective. What's kind of maybe the first thing that kind of comes to mind for you, Pastor Ben, when we talk about that word or topic of budgeting?
Yeah, when I think about budgeting, one of the first key words that comes to mind for me is value. When I look at myself personally, and I love these moments because we can kind of just be transparent with you as well, because we're going through this ourselves. But I really look at my life and say, what do I value in my life, and if I say I value something, really the time that I put towards what I value will show, right? So I think that even maybe you can ask this question to yourself. We're going to kind of dive a little more into this thought. But what is a value for you? What are the things that you value in specifics to your time?
Yeah.
Because the more you spend time in something, it really will automatically tell me and tell everybody else what you value. Whether you say it or not, the stuff you put your time to will speak it. So I think that's a key word, is value.
Yeah.
Value. What are you valuing today? What are you putting your time to? Are you really truly doing what you value? So I just love that. So that kind of be that.
Okay, I like that. Value. I think it's so important. So specifically, we are talking about budgeting time today, not just finances. So as we think about this thought of budgeting our time, we kind of had this come up with the two V's of budgeting our time: values, and for me it would be vision, which would be very similar, our values. But for me, when we think about this thought of budgeting our time, I like to start off by saying this. Stephen Covey said it in his book. Begin with the end in mind. What's the vision? What's your hope? What do you see that maybe God wanting you to accomplish in your life? What's the vision for, hopefully you know it in all areas. Your marriage, what's the vision for your finances? What's the vision for your family, for your future, in your business? When you have a vision, you will start to, hopefully the beginning place is starting to now adjust and budget your time accordingly to start meeting and accomplishing that vision. So we'll talk about some different areas that maybe you need to consider in budgeting your time, especially while we're at home, we're locked up, we're in a stay-at-home order. And the first thing we want to talk about is our health. First one is our health. As you guys all know, I'm on this health journey, and I don't know. I think maybe I'm conflicted because maybe the vision isn't clear. I see myself in shape with a six-pack.
We all see ourselves.
But my values isn't reflected in that. So what about you? Some thoughts about budgeting time when it comes to health? What do you think, Pastor?
Yeah, during this time, it's so important. And I've noticed, I'll be real with you, and if our trainers are watching, they know how bad we have been, and I'll speak just to myself for now, that if it's not, it really comes back to what you said, right? If I really value it, and if it's like, I got to evaluate my vision to it, right? If I really think that I can get this six-pack and I can do all these things, I could speak it, I could say it, but I really got to do it. And man, it's been difficult this past month or a month and a half or so, just as everything has changed, to really stick to it. But just really developing that time to say, hey, if we're gonna work out those 4 days a week at 2:30, stick to it.
So you know, we missed our workout today, and our excuse for our trainer, if she's watching this, is so we had to film today. Okay, so we're missing if we're valuing it, we would have made time. So actually, we readjusted.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work out tonight at around 6 p.m. So when you talk about budgeting our time, when I think about this thought of health too, yes, physical exercise, but another thought that comes to mind also is eating right, eating healthy. And I don't know about you, but man, we probably cook more at home now than in the past several years. Just very consistent. But man, it takes time. It takes time. If you're making prep meals, it takes time.
Yeah.
Washing the dishes, cooking. It's so much more easy and convenient going to the McDonald's drive-thru or Burger King. Yet, if that's what we value and that's our vision, I want to encourage you, especially in this season, man, to prioritize our health. It's so easy right now. I'll be the first one, okay? Because I know some of you text me and say, Pastor, you putting on weight? Yes, I have put on weight through this time. And man, I got to come back to what's my value, my why, my vision, and starting to take more time to physically exercise and eat right. Another part is our spirituality. Where are we in budgeting our time spiritually? What about you, Pastor Ben? When you talk about your own spiritual walk with the Lord, what does that look like budgeting your time throughout the day?
Yeah, man, if we're not careful, I really do see this, and maybe even the Lord convicting my heart as of recently, just that, where's my time going? And I know we're going to talk about even towards the end some reflection questions, but I'm going to hit on this now because I think it's so important. I remember listening to a podcast by Craig Rochelle, and he talks about non-negotiables. And really thinking about non-negotiables, things that you're not going to convince me otherwise. These are things I will do every single day, and because I value it and it is part of my vision, coming back to those 2 V's. And my spirituality and my relationship with God is foundational. It really is. So when I think about it, that is a non-negotiable. And if I do not find myself in that outlet and spending that time with Him, man, it throws everything off. So I'll encourage you guys to say that find that time for you to spend with God spiritually, whether it is a devotional, feed yourself. And I think this is what's so awesome about this Gather and Grow session, these things that we're doing, that even though we're giving you information and even talking some personal stories and just being transparent with you, I think it's so key that you guys feed yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is really what we're trying to set you guys up for success. We can only do so much to speak into you, but it's time for you guys to feed yourself as well. So for me, that's a non-negotiable. So I'll say it like that. Whatever that looks like for you, spend that time. For me, I know we kind of talked about this before. I do it in the morning, spending that time with God, grab my cup of coffee. As of lately, ever since this quarantine, I've become more of a coffee drinker than ever.
Okay.
So now it's like coffee coupled with God, you know. But yeah, so that would kind of be for my thoughts.
I love that. I think of, I find myself shifting and adjusting and trying to find, what works. And every season I find is different too, even spiritually in my walk with the Lord. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own routines. I know we talked about routines before. Sometimes I'll be doing a devotional. Sometimes it's reading through a particular book in the Bible and studying it. Sometimes it's a leadership devotional. And right now I'm trying to be a lot more conscious of my time too, even spiritually. I love Chris Hodges, pastor of Church of the Highlands. He says this thought that when he wakes up in the morning, he says he does not allow himself to touch his phone. He is no media until he's spent time just talking with the Lord, reading and praying. And I've, over this last several weeks, have tried to put intentional time to that. For me, whether maybe you know it or not, or maybe hard to admit it, but I think honestly we are addicted to devices.
Yes.
We're addicted to our phones, addicted to our devices. Our son is addicted. Now we've got Leisha's old phone that's connected to my account. He's got his own phone. And when it dies, he's like, my phone, I need your, I'm like, son, that's your responsibility. You got to charge it up now. But for a season, spiritually for me, I was so addicted to my device that I'd go to bed, I'm going to read my Bible. I end up scrolling through other things. So for a season, find what works for you. I used to plug my phone in the other room. And my excuse was, it's my alarm clock. And I remember hearing this one leader says, go buy an alarm clock if that's your problem. So for a season, I plugged into the other room. Right now in this season, I'm learning to be disciplined. I use it for my alarm clock. But when I wake up, I shut the alarm. I don't even unplug it from my bedside. Go in, I make a cup of coffee, and my first thought is, Lord, what do you want to speak to me today? So for me, it's adjusting. Know what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about our health, talked about our spiritual, let's talk about our emotional health and budgeting time for that. What about, we talked about this kind of personally, what are maybe some things that refuel you, Pastor Ben? What are the things that you love to do that kind of fuels you emotionally?
Yeah, I have a lot of those things, and normally they're always coupled with doing things with either a specific individual or people. I don't know. I just like doing things with people. So for those of you who don't know, I'm actually I'm a hardcore nerd. So I do enjoy doing like card games and board games.
Okay,
and like for me, I just love that. I really have been really itching to start kayaking. I know we talked about this, so that's something that I haven't done yet, but I do plan on doing. I'm a gamer. So these are like just sometimes when I just disconnect, and that just kind of fills me up. Just spending that time away, fueling on whether it is just playing a game or a board game. I love playing board games because I get to do it with people.
Okay.
So even sometimes yesterday, me and Shai, was such a beautiful day. We were outside on a blanket playing Connect 4.
Okay.
But honestly, those moments for me are gold. So
Okay.
I love it, and I think it's so important to be filling yourselves up emotionally through these kind of things. And I just love this thought. I remember hearing this even from one of my mentors I listened to, Chad Veach, and he was talking about sometimes it's easy to be spiritual giants and oftentimes emotional toddlers. And I was like, man, it's so good. And I think these kind of things are important, right? That we need to be investing in our emotional health. And how do we do that? With hobbies, with things that we enjoy that will fill our tanks. So that's kind of my tank being filled on those things.
So good. I know Pastor Ben and I have talked about this, that for me, I would have to tell people that actually I'm a pretty boring person. I really am. You get to know me. Maybe slight workaholic. I'm trying to get that title off of me to learn the balance of budgeting time. And one of those things is I gotta find a hobby. I remember being around with a few of my pastor friends, and we would get together, and I'll never forget talking to some of them who've been in the ministry for 20, 30, 40 years. And just talking with them and gleaning from them and their life and their ministry. I'd say, what does it take to be in the long haul for ministry and not burn out? And I'll never forget, is one pastor, a good friend of mine, says, do you have a hobby? What's your hobby? And I said, I don't have a hobby. I love working. That's my hobby. He says, nope, wrong answer. He says, you need a hobby. You need something that will emotionally just fuel your tank, that something completely separate from work, from church, from that life, to refuel your tank. So I'm actually on a quest to find a hobby. I told Leisha, I'm going to go golfing. That's going to be my hobby. Leisha's like, I am not buying you no $300, $400, $500 golf club set, and you're probably going to change your mind.
That's the typical pastor hobby to do. If you don't have anything, let's just golf.
Right. And all my friends are golfers. I thought, okay, I guess I got to golf too. And she's like, go on Craigslist, go find something on Facebook. So I found this set, $75. I bought this whole golf club set. I took it out once in the last, I think, 6 months. What I found was golf doesn't relax me. It stresses me out. That's not my hobby, my go-to hobby.
Keep searching.
I got to keep searching to find something that kind of refuels my tank. So another maybe area when it comes to budgeting our time is relationally. What's our value? What's our vision relationally? Your family, your friends, your marriage, your kids. If you truly have a value and vision for those things, you're going to make time for your relationships. And kind of the last one, number 5, is finances. What about you, Pastor Ben, in that area of finances? What is that? What comes to mind when we talk about budgeting and finances?
Man, it's difficult to say the least. I'm actually very thankful for this time, though. I do feel, just briefly sharing, just being able to get on track with finances, be a little more intentional with that. And I think it can be easy to just kind of just not care, and it kind of goes back to our values, right? That if we do value it, then it will be enforced. And right now for me, I'm we're just trying to establish it, and really try to build upon it. And I keep thinking about this quote by James Clear. Yeah, we're talking about habits, and we're really thinking about this idea of financial. In our finances, I just think about it is building a habit, right? When we do anything, it's building a habit. So if I value finances, I'll try my best, continue to build, to make sure that it becomes something that I value and it's of importance to me. So I will do it. I don't know if it's there yet, but it is something that really is to be valued, because we manage money every single day, and how we manage it is important, whether we're giving it out as we intake it. So I think it's so important that we need to establish it. This is what James Clear says, right? It needs to be established before it's improved. So right now, I feel like we've been trying to establish for a while, but getting to that point, it's okay to say that.
Yeah.
And maybe for some of you're having hard times financially, coming up with a plan maybe. And start small, begin it somewhere and establish it so that you can continue to improve it along the way.
That's good. I think of financial and budgeting, and I think the few words come to mind: discipline, stewardship, and I think honestly, one of the person who comes to mind who just was great at financially budgeting was my father. He was great at that, just stewarding. Every penny was accounted for, and he told everything where it needed to go, which is part of budgeting. It wasn't very reactive. It was a response ahead of time that he already determined where things were laid out. And I think of, for us personally, Laisha and I, we've been in different seasons of our life, and maybe you could relate to this. We were in one season of our life where, finances wasn't really an issue for us. I was working a great job up in the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. Laisha worked at the bank. We also were running our successful construction business at the time, making over 6 figures there, and it was super comfortable. And our bills were all paid. We had money in the bank. It was very comfortable, and you didn't really have to be disciplined. If you really ask me, I look back on those times, if we had been even more disciplined during those times, there could be a lot more that we could have done. And what we found is we went from one season being very comfortable, God moving us to another season where we didn't really have anything. Like straight up, I shared this before, we went from shopping at Macy's to, and this is not something bad, what we found, like shopping at Goodwill and Salvation Army. And I share this story just because it was a moment that I had of being able to buy whatever you want, but then in a new season, learning to budget time, and especially when it comes to our finances, where it's like, I cannot go buy that nice pair of Levi jeans, and now it's this Levi jeans that are a little worn between the legs, right? And throw in a little extra Clorox and wash that baby before you put it on. But we had to learn to adjust financially, even for us in that season. And honestly, if I could be real honest, when we struggled, where we both were going to school, trying to pay for all of those things, we were so strapped, we felt like, well, what sense is budgeting? That wasn't a value because we didn't even have money to budget, right? Like when you don't even have money and you're trying to scrape up enough to go shop we were shopping, at the dollar store. We lived in the dollar store, like a legit Dollar Tree. And we did everything in there. And in that season, we had to learn to adjust. So today we're talking about budgeting our time, and we're gonna kind of unpack, our talents, our treasure in another session. But if you're there now where you're having to readjust, maybe you lost a job, maybe finances has changed, maybe priorities that you once had that you could go out and eat all the time, maybe some of those things, budgeting wise, in our time has to shift. So I definitely want to encourage you, get adjusted to maybe the new normal of what this looks like, and maybe having to cut back. Laisha and I, we haven't even been eating out as much. We spend so much money eating out, and now it's financially adjusting that time to say, we're gonna go grocery shop and cook at home, and we're actually saving more money now. So when we talk about budgeting our time, another thought that comes to mind is also keeping a schedule, right? If we're gonna budget our time, we have to keep a schedule. for you, Pastor Ben, maybe what are some ways that maybe that could help the people? What do you use maybe to keep a schedule, and maybe some ideas or resources that you may have?
Yeah, I've talked about it before. Actually, I think it was our first session when we were talking. I kind of talk about routines. But right now, I used to struggle with this all through college and up to about even less than a year ago, I think. Because I always was I'm a very handwriting person. I like to handwrite things out. But within the day and time now, like everything's technology, everything's on devices. So I was caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to find, I love to handwrite, but also love to be on the technology and the device. So I found a happy medium with a tablet called Remarkable. So everything I do right now is scheduling is through there. I actually have downloaded pre-made PDFs that have literally the schedule, goals for the day, even has like water intake. You can track how much water you're drinking, setting goals for finances, relationships, for every area, job, whatever it may be. So it's kind of already structured for me, and I just have that every day. So I try to plan weekly, and then I even plan monthly goals. Okay. So this has been a huge thing for me. I am not good at it in any way, but this has really helped me. So if you're out there and you're like me and you're kind of between a rock and a hard place of like, I want to be on a device, but I like writing, handwriting. This thing is really awesome. You'll pay a little bit of a price to get it. But
disclaimer. Fit it financially in your budget. Right?
Yes. Disclaimer for your finances. But it really has helped me be more intentional and focused more in my planning and getting to that point where I can say, I feel like I'm getting a hold of it rather than it getting a hold of me. So.
That's good. I think for me, and I think the real key is finding what works for you, right? I swear maybe I have undiagnosed ADD. I've always been that. I've always changing. For a season, for about 2 years, I use this called the Passion Planner. It's a great start if you don't have or you prefer kind of writing. I think it's great because it kind of helps you to spell out each day, the week. It gives you monthly things to jot down, to think through and reflect about that month. And I think this is just some great little tools, and it help you to track your vision, your values, and then how to translate that to broken down into steps. So for a season, about a couple of years, I used this. There's many different ones called the Focus Planner. It asks you to a bunch of different questions to start off your day. So find what works for you. I have switched over, like I said, ADD. I used it for a while. I switched to another one, and now I'm back to digital because the whole church calendar is on digital. I think there's about 15 different colors on our calendar for the church. I love everything having its place and color. So the moment you see the color, you know what's going on. So I just got to switch there. It's on Outlook. Maybe for you, maybe using Gmail. It doesn't have to be expensive, right? Gmail, make a Google account. You can use their Gmail, you can use their Google Calendar, they have their OneDrive, all things on there. It's all free. Take advantage of those things. So those are things of helping you to keep your schedule. We want to end and close this time asking yourselves maybe several questions. So number one, find your rhythm with what works for you. So don't necessarily have to do what other people are doing. Yeah. And I know you had kind of shared a thought with somebody else, so maybe you want to share with them what you're sharing with me earlier.
Yeah, I'll just share from my personal experience. Like even kind of when I was on this search and journey to try get my stuff in order, oftentimes the things what we can do is really the people that we feed from, like a lot of like mentored pastors I listen to, and there's a lot of things that they do and they do very well. And I used to kind of buy into this that because they do it so well and they have so much influence that I had to do what they did, And I think the more I begin to kind of find myself and find my own rhythm, I really discovered that I'm hindering myself trying to be like somebody else. And I think, and this kind of comes even to this idea of scheduling, that even if they have their own way of scheduling, that doesn't mean I have to do it that way. If it's effective for them, it may not be effective for me. And honestly, I was hindering myself because I was trying to do something that I really wasn't wired to do because it just didn't work for me. So I would encourage you to really go on a search for yourself. You can hear us talk about, you can hear my method, you can hear Pastor Dion's method, but your method might be completely different. And I just love that. So I really encourage you to go on a discovery for yourself to find what that looks like for you. You don't have to just take what someone else did. Find your own rhythm, your own pattern, and just go ahead and do it and be you. And yeah, I think that's good.
I think oftentimes, so good, Pastor Ben. And I think oftentimes we because we don't know what works for us, we just try to take from other people. And I think it's a great way to start, right? Like you learn from other people, best practices of what people are doing. You can start off with those, but like Pastor Ben said, start diving in. Hey, if you want to know anything, go on YouTube. You want to learn about organization?
Yeah.
I just, as shared with Pastor Ben, I just upgraded to YouTube Premium. I canceled my Spotify. I'm on YouTube Premium. No commercials. I don't have to wait 30 seconds anymore. And man, you can learn anything on there. Maybe except guitar. I'm still learning how to play guitar. I'm going to put in that practice. But yeah, go on YouTube. You can find a bunch of things. Know what works for you, your own rhythm.
Yeah.
Even when we talk about rhythm, knowing what best even times of day. So another question, second question we want to ask is, what are your most productive times throughout the day? When are you most productive? And I don't know about you, Pastor Ben, but for me, man, in the mornings, I am sharp. I'm clear.
Mm-hmm.
Usually by around after lunch, I'm kind of on a slump.
Yeah.
And I come back in the afternoon, and I usually get my midnight second wind right around 11 o'clock. And right when I'm about to go to bed, and I know this goes against what we had said earlier, but right around 10:30, 11, I get another win. I'm like, of clear energy and thought and focus. And man, I'll go like from 10:30, 11 to like 1:30 and plan everything out, get things done, and I go to bed around 1:30. But what about for you? What are your most productive times for you in the day?
Yeah, I would say morning is definitely becoming that point, but give me a couple hours after the morning starts. I would say maybe around 10, 11 a.m. I'm cooking now. But so I think I'm still trying to find that rhythm, but I would say more afternoonish or close to the afternoon or right prior to the afternoon starting. Like I feel like, man, I'm getting cooking here. The ball's rolling. And I think it is different on some levels. Like even with my first time is still spending with God in the morning when I wake up. But as far as productivity goes and doing work on some levels, it's very in that segment of time.
Okay.
After late morning, afternoon, I feel like yes, let's go.
Okay, so that's good. So knowing when's your most productive time during the day, it's even maybe if your value or vision is relationally, know when those right times are to talk. If it's in the morning where it's a better conversation, you can communicate with your spouse. Hey, have it in the morning. Sometimes when you come home late at the end of the day, you're done, you're tired, you're exhausted, and sometimes communication may not be as meaningful. Right? So find what times are best for you and budget those things out, whether it's emotion. If it's emotionally, find what fills your tank and begin budgeting those things in. I know you kind of we're alluding to that non-negotiables. You want to add anything else about before we wrap this thought on budgeting our time?
Yeah. I mean, it really has changed my life when I think about what I'm doing and or what I'm not doing that I should be doing, vice versa. And I would really just challenge you with that question to ask yourself, what am I doing now that I don't need to do? And maybe what am I not doing that I need to do? And I think those two questions kind of fall under this non-negotiable, because if it really is something that no one is going to convince you otherwise, like it needs to happen in the day, then it needs to happen for you to feel fulfilled. And for you to kind of get the things done and accomplish things. So I think that this idea of the non-negotiables is, I just love saying it too. It's a very attractive word. But yeah, so I don't know what that looks like for you, but I encourage you to find it, because I believe we kind of talked about this when we were talking earlier, that we say yes to so many things. Yeah. And if we really were to know our non-negotiables, we would better help ourselves say no, so that we would set ourselves up for success to say, okay, I know I'm not able to do this because it's not part of, even though sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, so don't get me wrong. But sometimes you have to fall back and say, you know what, this isn't something that is a non-negotiable, like things that I absolutely is requires, and I need to do this a part of my day. So it's okay to say no.
Yeah. You know, I think as we kind of wrap and close this thought here, for a period, a season of my life, man, I went through always saying yes to everything. Yeah. And I remember talking to this one leader who was talking about how we should be saying yes, because it also causes us to stretch in areas that we would never have said yes to. Mm-hmm. And also increases capacity, and truly doors have opened, I think, even in my own life, even within the community, relationships, friendships with other people, from saying yes. But I am learning, the more I learn about myself, who God called me to be, my own gifting, my own skills, talents, my value and vision, as those things all become clearer, my strengths and ultimately even my weaknesses. When I start seeing my strengths of what I am great at, but then, boy, what am I not great at? And then what's my values and visions? I start to say, man, when you talk about budgeting time, my time would not be best spent doing that. Mm-hmm. Right? Like it should be best spent in this way. So even for you in this season in your life, I want to encourage you to budget your time and budget it well. Be true to who God's made you to be. Know your values, know your vision. If you don't know, don't have one, go to God's word. Read his word. You want a vision for your life? Go to God's word. Read his word as you start seeing the vision that he has for you and start unfolding. It start to reshape and shift some of our own thinking so that we can be on board with where God wants to lead you and I to. In this closing thought, I want to give a quote by Rick Warren. He says this quote to divert daily, withdraw weekly, and abandon annually. Divert daily, withdraw weekly, and abandon annually. He says, I developed a long time ago some habits. One of them is what I call divert daily, withdraw weekly, and abandon annually. Divert daily is every day you do something that's not work related. Every day. Which I think is such a great thought. I hear of I heard this one dentist, and he says midday never fails. He goes out and he'll go golfing. I heard this one other person that they're a pastor, no matter what their schedule, they go out and they're going to go running. It's something they do completely separate, not work related. You do something that relaxes you, that's non-work related. Then you withdraw weekly. Bible says that every 7 days you take off. And then abandon annually means you just go out and forget it all. Man, I have to say, all three I need to work on.
I think we all do.
And I think of even the idea of Sabbath and why God made Sabbath, and the idea was sharing even with Pastor Darren Fisher earlier, how we have this idea that we work all week long to finally get to TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday and we're gonna rest, and we work to rest. But really the Bible teaches a very opposite idea, and God talks about how we're to take that Sabbath from the beginning and we're to rest first so that we can be refueled mentally, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, so that we can work from that place of rest. So I pray this week, take some time to have a Sabbath, a down day where you're refueling daily, withdraw, do something non-work related that you can just have fun. Annually, if you can't take a vacation, now's not a good time to take one, although there is cheap flights out there, not the best time. Stay at home, yes, but make time where you can just withdraw even annually. We often, Leisha and I will get away, and even if we got to do a staycation in Kona, mm-hmm. and we just stay there for a week, and it's a time to just unwind, disconnect, shut the phone off. I don't answer emails or anything like that, and just kind of unplug to kind of reset. So these are kind of our encouraging thoughts for this week about managing and budgeting your time. And we pray that whatever time, we've all been given the same amount of time. Imagine that, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But what you do with that time reflects even how you glorify God. Yeah. We're all given time. each and every day. And we pray that you would steward your time well this week, whatever that is. Readjust. Maybe it's getting for you, your values and vision maybe for this week have to be readjusted. Spend some time in prayer this week saying, Lord, what is the vision for my life? And sometimes the vision changes and shifts. Maybe you're in a season that financially the vision has shifted. Adjust. Say, Lord, you're my one constant. Everything else is up for discussion and can change. So vision and values may shift. Help me to adjust my time accordingly. So we love you. We're praying for you. Stay safe, stay at home, stay healthy, and we will see you shortly. God bless you.